Hey everyone, welcome back to Brainstorm. This is Python for NCEA. Now, in this video, we're going to take a look at dictionaries. So, first of all, what actually is a dictionary? Well, a dictionary in Python is a container which contains key-to-value mappings. So, what does that actually mean? Well, if you think about an actual dictionary, like the dictionary book, you search up a word, okay, and then when you find that word in the dictionary, you'll see that it has a description of what that word means. So a Python dictionary works in the same way, right? So that word is the key, and once you find the key in the dictionary, it maps to a description of the word. So in the same way in Python, we have a key, which can be a string or maybe an integer or something like that, and it maps to some other value. So it might be maps to another string, it might be maps to another integer, it might be mapping to a list or a tuple. It all depends on what you're trying to do. So how do we make dictionaries in Python? Well, first let's make a variable called my dictionary. So my dictionary. And that's equal to, and then to make a dictionary, we use curly braces. So opening and closing curly braces, and this is a dictionary. Now, let's say we wanted to map the number 1 to a name, for example. So how do we do that? Well, we'll type the number 1. So essentially, for every item in the dictionary, we have a key to value mapping. So first we write the key, we put a colon, and then we put the value that we want to map to the key. So for example, if I wanted to have the number 1 mapping to someone's name, so let's have 1 mapping to Bob, what we need to do is we need to put the colon. So we've got the key 1 maps to, and then the value. So let's put the value as Bob. So key 1 corresponds to Bob. If we want to add another key value pair, what we do is we put a comma, similar to a list or a tuple, and what we do is we put the next key. So I can put 2, for example. I put a colon, so 2 maps to, and then let's put a name, let's say Alice. Let's do another one. Let's do the key 4. Now 4 maps to, let's choose a name, let's choose the name Ellen. Okay, so let's say that this is my dictionary here. So in order to we'll look at accessing elements a bit further down, but if I just print the dictionary, so if I print my dictionary and I run it, you'll see that it pretty much prints the exact same thing out to the outer shell. So 1 maps to Bob, 2 maps to Alice, and 4 maps to Ellen. Next, let's look at using for loops in order to add items to our dictionaries, which is quite a common thing to do. So for this example, I've created a list called lolly list. Now in this list, we have each item is another list, and in that list, we have as the first element of that list, we have the manufacturer of the lolly. So in this case, it's Ellen's, followed by varying amounts of lollies, and all these lollies correspond to that manufacturer. So for example, we have Ellen's, and then followed by they make Snakes Alive, they make Redskins, and they make Minties. Okay, if we look here, we've got next item is from the manufacturer RJ's, and they've made Raspberry Twister, which is those like Wonka licorice. Next one, Natural Confectionery, they make Dinosaurs, Sour Patch Kids, and Party Mix. We've got Pascals, and then you can see that we kind of repeat some of the already mentioned lollies. So we've got RJ's again, and then we've put Sherbet Fizz and Herds, and then we've got Natural Confectionery again. So what we want to do is we want to make a lolly dictionary out of this 2D list or list of lists. And the key that we will want is to have the manufacturer as the key, so that when we access the manufacturer, it will give us all the lollies that they make. Okay, so in this case, if we wanted to get RJ's, we wouldn't just want to print Raspberry Twister, but we would want to also have the Sherbet Fizz and the Herds as well. So let's look at how we would do that using for loops. Now, I've got this code here. I'm not going to go through how it works, but we'll cover all the information on how it works. So you can look at it if you want to, essentially all this does is it just takes the dictionary and it prints out what the key value mapping is a little bit more nicely, okay? But you don't need to worry about what this does. So how do we convert this into a dictionary? So the first thing we need to do is make our empty dictionary. So we're going to go lollydict, and that's equal to the empty dictionary. So that's using our curly braces. Then we're going to use a for loop. So for I in lollylist. And actually, let's call it for list. Actually, let's not call it for list, let's just call it for I. So for I in lollylist, and if you're not familiar with this, you can watch the for loops video. So for each list in lollylist, what do we want to do? Well, first we want to check if the manufacturer is already in the dictionary. If it's already in the dictionary, then we just want to add to the already existing list. If it's not in the dictionary, then we want to create a new key value mapping. So for I in lollylist, if the first element of the list, which is the manufacturer, is not in the dictionary, so whenever we use a for loop, we're always referring to the key. Okay, so if the key is not already in the dictionary, what do we want to do? Well, we want to make a key. So the way we do that is we write lollydict. We use the index brackets, so that's the rectangular brackets, and we put the key in that we want to access. Now the key in this case is I with index 0, right? So I index 0 is always going to give me the manufacturer. So Allen's, RJ's, Natural Confectionery. So we're saying if the key is not in the dictionary, let's set the key and let's set it equal to, or essentially what we're saying is, what does it map to? What it maps to is the rest of the rest of that list. Okay, if it's not already in the dictionary, we don't need to worry about adding any other lists to it, because we know it's definitely not in the dictionary already. So if it's not there, all we're going to do is we're going to set it equal to that list, and we don't want to include the manufacturer, right? We just want to include everything else. So what we're going to do is we're going to take it from index 1. So this is index 0. We're going to take it from index 1 to the end of the list. So that's 1 to the end of the list. Else, so if the manufacturer already is in the list, then all we want to do is we want to add the, so for example, if RJ's is already in the list, we just want to add the remaining items to that key, or to that key mapping, sorry. So the way that we would do that is we'd say lollydict at I index 0, and we want to add our list onto it, right? So we're going to go plus equal, and we're just going to add on I from 1 to the end. Okay, so if I save that and I click F5, what you can see is we've got the manufacturer, and it maps to a list containing all of the lollies that they make. So you can see that RJ's and Natural Confectionery are including those other two, or those two separate lists, and they've combined them into one. Okay, if I just print out the lollydict, you can see that it's going to print out it's going to print the dictionary out in this format here. So if I save that and run it, and let me make it a bit more clearer. So you can see that what we've got here is the dictionary, and you see Allen's maps to this list here, RJ's maps to this list here, Natural Confectionery lists links maps to this list here, and Pascal's links to this list. And this is the for loop that I created before that you don't need to worry about. It just presents it in a little bit more of a nicer way. Alright, so we've looked at how we make dictionaries. Now, how do we actually access the element in the dictionary? So given that we know the key in the dictionary, how do we access the values of that? It's pretty simple. All we do is we write the name of the dictionary, and then we write the key. So we use our index rectangular brackets, similar to what we did when we used the for loop here. So we're saying access lollydict at key, and the index here technically is the key, but instead of putting like a random index number like 0, 1, or 2, we put the key in that we want to access. So let's say that for the lollydict, we wanted to access RJs. So if we put RJs in here, what this is going to do is it's going to grab the values mapped to the key RJs. So if I print this here, what do you think it will print? Well, we know it's going to print out this list here. So if I save this and run it, you can see that it's printed out that list there. So this is a lot more useful. I hope you can see that if we want to access certain elements, or like certain elements depending on like an ID. So for example, we want to access all these lollies depending on who the manufacturer is. It's going to be a lot easier for us to do it this way than using something like a list or a tuple, where we would have to know exactly what index things are at. In a dictionary, we don't actually know, or we don't actually care, to be honest, about the index of each key to item pair. We just care that we know what the keys are and we know what they are mapping to. Okay, so let's try I created a dictionary earlier called My Dictionary. Let's try and grab 1, 2, 3, and 4 using keys 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's see what they are attached to. So let's go. We can actually use a for loop to do this, so why don't we practice using a for loop? So for I in range 1 to 5, let's print my dictionary at index I. So if I save this and run it, let's see what happens. So we're going to get a key error, but why is that? So let's just look at what's happened first. So it's got key 1. So key 1 maps to Bob. Key 2 maps to Alice. Now, let's try to access key 3, but we have not actually defined key 3. So what Python does is it will give you an error. So it's going to raise what we call a key error, which means that you've tried to access a key which does not exist in your dictionary. It's like trying to access a make-up word in a real dictionary. Of course, you're not going to be able to find it in your dictionary. So this is why we get a key error. Now, if I just try to access, so let's say if I is equal to 3, pass, else this. So let's see if this works now. And it looks like it does. So what I've written here is like, if the index is 3, don't run the print statement. So now you can see it prints Bob, Alice, and Ellen. So it's going 1, 2, skip 3, and then 4 maps to Ellen. So this is how we access elements in our dictionaries. Next, let's take a look at dictionary methods. Now, these are probably a little bit more uncommonly used, but it's a good tool to have. So there's 3 main dictionary methods that we might want to use. They are the .items, .keys, and .values methods. So let's take lollydict, for example. Let's say that I wanted to grab all the keys in lollydict. So the way that I'll do that is I'll do lolly_dict.keys. What this will do is it will return all the keys in that dictionary. So if I print this method and I run it, what you can see is it's given us this interesting thing that says dict keys. Then it's given us a tuple or dict keys, and inside the argument or the parameter, it's got a list of all the keys. So generally speaking, when we use this method, we need to convert this into a list. So it would go list, we put in case lollydict.keys in there, and if we save that and run it now, you can see that it prints out a list of all the keys. I can do the same thing for the value. So if I wanted to grab all the values regardless of the keys, what I'll do is I'll go lollydict.values, and it will print exclusively only the values. So as you can see here, we've got the keys from this line here, and then all the values are given in a 2D list. So we've got a list, and each list inside of that list contains some values from the lolly dictionary. Okay, so you can see this is for Ellen's, this is for RJ's, this is for natural confectionery, and then the last one's for Pascal's. Now, if we wanted to get both the key and value pairs, we need to use lollydict.items. So I'll make an empty print there, and let's print the list of lollydict.items. If I save that and run it, now you can see that it does generate a list, and inside of each list is a tuple. Now inside of that tuple, we've got the first index being the manufacturer or the key, and the second index or the second item inside of that tuple being the value or the list of lollies in this case. Alright, let's take a look at our application questions. Question 1. Write a program which converts a list of strings into a dictionary. The key for each string is the first letter of the string. The value for each key is a list of strings starting with the key sorted in alphabetical order. Ensure each list for every letter contains no duplicate strings. Note that strings are case sensitive, so the in capitals is different from the in lower capitals or lowercase. So, for example, we've got this input here, this list here. So you can see that it's got the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. Okay, so you can see that we've got 3 repeats of the. So in our dictionary, we'd only want one. We'd only want one of those in there. So have a go, and then we'll go over how to do it. Okay, here's the list here, and we want to convert this into a dictionary. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a dictionary. Let's call it myDict. Let's set it equal to an empty dictionary. Now what do we want to do? Well, we want to loop through this string list here, right? So we're going to say for I in string list. So in fact, let's make it a little bit easier to see. Let's go for word in string list. So what do we want to do for every word in that list? Well, first thing we want to check is if the first letter of that word is in the dictionary. So what we'll say is if that key exists in the dictionary. So if word at index 0, so that's just going to fetch the first index of every word. If word 0, and we want to check if it is in the dictionary. So that's our key, right? So if it's not in the dictionary, what do we want to do? Well, we want to add it to the dictionary. So the way that we'd do that is we'd say myDict for the key word at index 0. So for that myDict, for the key, the first letter of the word is equal to the list containing that word. So the list is going to just consist of one element right now because we know it's a brand new key to value mapping. So it's just going to consist of the word the, for example. So we're just going to put in word like this. Now we need to include these rectangular brackets to say, hey, we want to make a list. Now, what happens if it's already in the dictionary? Well, all we want to do is we just want to append to this list here. So the way that we would do that is we would say, well, actually, we don't want to do that just yet. We want to check if it is a duplicate. If it's not a duplicate word, then we want to append it. Okay, so what we'd want to do is we would want to go, we'd write another if statement. So we'd say if if the word is in myDict word, is in myDict at the key word with index 0. So a bit confusing here, but what I'm saying is if the word is already in the list contained at key, the first letter of the word. So if we take quick, for example, if quick is already in the dictionary, or is already in the value or the list mapping to the key Q, then we don't want to add it in, right? So in fact, let's go if word is not in, so we don't have to have an else statement. So if word is not in myDict at that given key, then we would only want to append it then. So what we'll say is myDict word 0 dot append, and what do we want to append? We just want to append that word to it. So that's going to get rid of all the duplicate thus. So we need to sort in alphabetical order, and the way that we're going to do that is we could apply a sort. So we could assort the list down here, but that's not that efficient. But we may as well just do it. So my dict word 0.sort. Okay, what's happening here? So we've just appended the word there. Okay, once we've appended the word, so we've added a new word onto that list, we want to sort it. So we want to keep sorting that list so that it's always in alphabetical order. Now, if I save this and run it, hopefully we're going to get the output is the same as this. Okay, so we've got a problem here. My dictionary is not defined. So I've called it my dict. So I need to remove that there. Okay, let's have a look now. So B brown, D dog, F fox, J jumped, L lazy, O over, Q quick, and T contains the list TA and THE. So you can see that it's removed all of the duplicate THEs in that list. So it looks like we have done our job correctly. Okay, let's take a look at question 2a. Write a program which creates a dictionary from a list. Each item in the list is a tuple with the following format. So we've got the tuple here. It contains the student ID, first name, last name, list of subjects, and then their average grade. Now the key for each item should be the student's ID, and that should map to a value. Now that value for each item is the rest of the student information in the form of a list. So the key is this, and the value is all of this. But this should be a list. Okay. So, how are we going to do this? Oh, we need to also ensure that the student subject list is sorted in alphabetical order. So we've got this as our input. So we've got a list of data, and each item is a tuple containing all of the information as mentioned above. So we've got John, Alice, Barry, and When. Now the suggested output is we've got the ID, and that maps to a list, and the list contains all of the information from index 1 to the end. Have a go, and then we'll go through it. Okay, so let's make a dictionary. Let's call it student dict, and let's set it equal to curly braces. So this is setting it equal to an empty list initially. Now what we want to do is we want to loop through the student list here, and then we want to do something for each tuple. So what we're going to say is for I in the student list. So what this is saying is for tuple in the student list, what do we want to do? Well, what we want to do is we want to grab this first index from the tuple and set it equal to the list. So set it equal, so this is our key, and the value is going to be the list of all the other information in our tuple. So it's going to be pretty easy, relatively easy to convert this into a dictionary, into a key value mapping. So the way that we'll do that is we'll do student dict at the key tuple with index 0. So we're grabbing this index here, or the student ID, and we're going to set that equal to the list of the tuple with indexes 1 to the end. So what have we done here? We've said, hey, grab this index, so grab the student ID at index 0 to be the key, and grab everything else to be the value. Now the thing is, this is inside a tuple, okay? So all of this is going to be stored inside a tuple. So this will be in a tuple, but we want to store it in a list. If you see our example output, everything is inside a list, so we need to convert it into a list. So we convert the tuple into a list. So that's going to create our key value mappings, but remember that we want to sort each, so that we want to ensure each student's subject list is sorted in alphabetical order. There's a couple of ways we do that. We could run another for loop. So I think I might do that just because it will be a little bit more simple. So we'll say for I in this dictionary now. So for I in the student dict, we're going to grab the list at the student dict I. So what this is doing is it's grabbing for every key in the student dict at that key. And what we want to do is we want to access index. So this is our list here. We've got index 0, index 1, and then the list is at index 2. So student dict at that key for index 2 dot sort. So essentially, if we take this for our first example, let's say that it loops through in order, which might not be the case for a dictionary because we don't care about order in dictionaries, but essentially, so we loop through the dictionary. It's going to grab, let's say it grabs this key here. So the student dict at key 100 is going to map to this list containing all of these values here. Now we want to grab the index 2 of this list here, so 0, 1, 2, which is this list of subjects, and we're just sorting it here. If I save and run this now, you can see that we've got that key to value mapping. So 100 maps to this list here, and 103 maps to Wendy's and all of our subjects here. So it looks like we've done the question correctly because the suggested output matches what we've got here. Next, let's look at question 2b. Suppose I wanted to access some information of student 103. Use the dictionary created to access the information of student 103. Print the output as follows. First name, last name, average grade. We give the average grade, and then we give them the subjects that they take. So if we look at our dictionary that we've created, 103 maps to Wendy's, okay? So we should say Wendy's average grade was a merit. As you can see, it was a merit. And the subject she takes, and we want to list through all the subjects she takes. So she takes quite a lot of subjects. So all we're doing here is we're just accessing information. So what we're going to do is we're going to store all of student 103's values in a variable called student 103. So we're going to set that equal to the student dict at index, with the key 103. So if I print student 103 now, this should give me this list here. So, oops. If I save it and click F5, you'll see that it gives me this the list which maps to index or key 103. So we've got all the information here now. So what do we want to do? First thing we want to print is their average grade. So we're going to print first name, last name, average grade, and then we're going to put in the average grade. So how do we do that? We're going to use .format, but you can use any printing technique if you like, of course. Okay, we're going to grab their first name, which is at index 0, and their last name, which is at index 1. So format, and we're going to go student 103 at index 0, student 103 at index 1, and that should be a comma. And then the last thing is the average grade. I spelled average wrong there, eh? So average grade. So the average grade is going to be at index -1 or 0, 1, 2, 3. So index 3 or index -1. It's up to you, right? Student 103, I'll use -1. So this is going to print out their average grade. The next thing I want to do is print out the subjects they take. Now, there's very specific formatting of how this is done. So if it is not the last subject in the list, we just list it off with commas. If it is the last one, then what we're going to do is we're going to print and then the last subject. So this is more of an exercise on print formatting. So how are we going to do this? We're going to say, first we're going to print the subjects, first name, last name, takes are, and then we're going to print the subjects they take. So .format, let's first format it, so it's student 103 0, student 103 1. So this is the index 0 and 1. Let's save and run it and let's see what we've got so far. So you can see it prints Wendy's average grade was merit, which is good. And then we say the subjects Wendy's takes are, okay, So what we want to do is we want to set an end here. So we want to say the end is going to be nothing. So we want to print onto the same line. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to loop through. Loop through the list here. So there's a few ways that we can go through doing this. We're going to go for I in range, the length of student 103 at index 012. Okay, so what this will do is it will just loop through the subject list and print it onto the same line. So the way that would happen is we'd go print student underscore 103.2. So that's that subject list at index I. Okay, and if we set the end to be equal to comma space, so what you'll see is the subject Wendy's takes are calculus, chemistry, drama, health, music, physical education, statistics, and then it prints a comma and a space, which is not quite the format we want. We want to do this until we get to the second to last one, because there will be no comma there, and then we'll print and statistics. So we need to change this for loop to loop until the end of that list, -2. Okay, so if we save that and run it, you'll see that it goes up until music, but doesn't include phys ed or stats. So the next thing we'll do is we'll print this onto a new line, and what we'll print is the remaining format that we need. So we'll print, so this will be phys ed, and then we'll print and then we'll print the last subject, which is stats, and then a full stop. Then we need to format it, so we use dot format, and the dot format is going to be student underscore 103, the subject list at index -2, and the same thing but at index -1. Okay, if I save this now and I click F5, subjects Wendy's takes are calculus, chem, drama, health, music, phys ed, and statistics with a full stop. So as you can see, it's printing out the exact same suggested output. So this is as required or as needed. Awesome, guys. Thanks for checking out this video on Dictionaries. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.